Hello, my beautiful tribe. Welcome back to First Impressions with Angie. I am here today and I am so excited. I'm here with my dear friend and mentor and fellow Marylander, Daniel from Areas in the Nation.
Hello. Thanks for having me. Thanks for
Thanks for
having
being
me.
here. Oh my
Of, dude,
gosh.
of course, without a doubt, we have very similar paths that we're taking, discovering Sabaton, and for this one, I feel like our paths can intersect at the right time. Like
Absolutely.
we both have checked out Christmas Truce, and honestly, very powerful, very potent song. And why not check out the history of it?
Absolutely. I was so excited when I heard that Sabaton had a history channel.
Yeah,
And I was like, "Oh my gosh." So, yeah, I love documentaries and
they
real
definitely
stories.
they definitely do it right. They definitely
Yeah.
do it right, man. And I love that Sabaton is shedding, not really shedding light. I guess that you could say shedding light, but like spotlighting moments in history that are like that shouldn't be overlooked or more taught, right?
Yes.
Like
Yes. I
because
mean, I'm not
we've all learned
ashamed to
about World War One.
say I've reacted to several of their songs and
Mhm.
I've learned from them. I've not
Yeah,
just enjoyed their performance, but I've learned, and I'm not ashamed to say I didn't learn it in school. I
no,
didn't.
no. I mean, our not to our learning process is basically memorization and regurgitation, not abs- absorbing knowledge, which is a huge downfall of our education system. Because
Absolutely.
once you take the test, you're never going to be tested on that stuff again. So we just forget. We
Right.
memorize to spit it back out, and then after that, it's gone. So
Well, and the bad thing is there are different ways of learning. Like if
yep,
I try to read, I don't. If I can only retain when I read, if I read aloud.
yep,
If I try to read silently, I keep reading the same sentence over again, and it's got to be some kind of I don't know. But me, visual, like all the senses, like
hmm
listening, and that's why this music, this educational metal is what I call it,
yeah.
is it's brilliant. It's
No,
so.
I it's so refreshing. It's like
Mm.
such a refreshing take on music. But I mean, listen, guys, it is this is I think this is like a 22-minute video. I
So
think.
we better get started.
Let's dive into this. All
Just
right.
give me a minute, and I will.
No, you're good. Angie's in control of this one, guys. So let's I'm excited.
That being said, my apologies to everyone watching. Okay, here we go. Let me
All right.
there we go. Make sure volume is at 100%. So
There you go.
here we
That's the only
go.
way to listen to Sabaton. It's at 100.
Exactly.
It's at 100.
Are you ready, my friend?
Let's do it. Let's do
All
it.
right.
Today's Sabaton History episode is not about a battle. It's not about a weapon. It's not about like a tank or a plane. It's not even about a person involved in a war. Yet it is about the Great War.
It is, of course, the Christmas Truce.
You'll be home before the first leaves fall, they said. The war will be over by Christmas, they said. Well, the leaves had all fallen, and by late December 1914, there was no end in sight to the Great War. As the soldiers realized that they would spend winter in the miserable trenches, morale plummeted. What would happen, I wonder, Winston Churchill wrote to his wife in mid-December, if the armies suddenly and simultaneously went on strike and said some other method must be found for settling their dispute? He would soon find out. The professional armies of career soldiers who had fought each other over the summer were largely gone by now, dead, wounded, or prisoners. In their stead stood conscripted men and disillusioned wartime volunteers, trapped in the horrors of trench warfare. Both sides spent their days sharing their meager rations with rats, fleas, and lice. They slept in damp underground dugouts and caves, while the forward sentries tried to keep awake in the mud and the sleet. The whole trench system was still seen as temporary, though, and breakthrough would come soon, so it lacked any kind of comfort or sophistication. And beyond the parapets? Well, on December 21st, British Colonel Swinton wrote, "This is the Ultima Thule. Beyond is neutral territory, the no man's land between the hostile forces. It is strewn with the dead of both sides, some lying, others caught or propped on the sagging wire where they may have been for days, still others half buried in craters or destroyed parapets." When winter began and the temperature dropped, an increased lethargy was noticed by officers on both sides. Soldiers were literally sick of the worsening conditions, of being constantly exposed to the cold, the rain, and the enemy guns. The aggressive policies put in place by high command to keep the infantry busy only made things worse. Patrolling through the nights, keeping watch over the parapets, throwing bombs and sniping at the enemy, it all seemed so futile. All it did was increase their own chances of getting killed. This led to a number of unofficial truces all over the front, a live and let live system. You let me sleep, I let you sleep. You don't fire on our latrines, we won't shoot up yours. Sometimes grenades were intentionally thrown to the side, or code words were exchanged, signaling a coming bombardment. It was a basic, almost natural understanding that there were limits to war. This is important in order to understand what would happen in the days around Christmas. The Champagne offensive began the week before Christmas. After a series of attacks and counterattacks, no man's land was once more littered with the bodies of the fallen. The overall mood inside the trenches was as terrible as the weather, with men up to their knees in mud and water. Then the first incidents happened. German soldiers were heard asking about a ceasefire. Hands in the air, they indicated that they wanted to go out and take care of the wounded in no man's land and bury the decaying bodies. The British agreed and went out to do the same. It was all spontaneous, but suddenly men were passing each other over the battlefield without firing a shot. In some cases, they even had a quick chat or shared a cigarette. People sometimes overestimate the size of no man's land, but the trenches were usually 200 meters apart max, often less than half that. The forward saps were even closer. Day and night, the men could hear each other talking or yelling and singing. Conversations between the two sides were not uncommon. When a German soldier was seen carrying a wounded British soldier back to the line, he was thanked and granted a safe passage back. Christmas Eve morning, the Christmas gifts arrived. Chocolate and sweets, cigarettes and tobacco, and hundreds of thousands of small packages and letters from home. This raised morale tremendously, but also magnified the feelings of homesickness and the desire for peace and a return to normal life. Men began shouting and teasing each other, "Fritz, Tommy, come across, we meet halfway." But they were hesitant. A few brave souls went out at their own risk. There are many different stories, but over the course of the day, there were even incidents of British and German officers talking about a possible ceasefire on Christmas Day. By evening, soldiers lit candles in the trenches. Some even set up small Christmas trees. The men sang the all-time classics in English and German, like Stille Nacht, The First Noel, and O Come All Ye Faithful. For most devout Christians, Christmas was the most important day of the year, and the celebration of the birth of Christ stood in many ways in stark contrast to the reality of the war itself. Around midnight, everything went eerily quiet, and on Christmas morning, as the fog disappeared, the stillness remained. Instead of the cracking of rifles, men heard the chirping of birds. Everyone in the sector wondered what would happen next. Soldiers once more began talking to each other. Boxes of food and souvenirs were thrown across to the other side. A few men exposed themselves above the parapets, then more followed. A basic agreement was made. No one would fire unless fired upon. In some places where the ceasefire had indeed been arranged beforehand, further rules were set in place. First of all, if either side fired a shot with the intent to kill, the truce was immediately off. Action by artillery did not count, nor did it break the truce, as they had no control over the batteries far to the rear of the trenches. If an order was given to open fire, they would shoot the first 3 rounds into the air to give the other side time to get under cover. If there were orders to expend a certain amount of ammunition this day, the machine gunners would waste ammo in the evening hours after a shrill warning signal. Neither side was allowed to erect barbed wire or repair their trenches during the truce. Still, everything depended on trust and an unwritten code of honor. A machine gun could cut them all down within seconds, yet no one shot. Men venturing out did not even carry arms. Some waved a white flag, and the men, mortal enemies just a day before, met and shook hands, talked, and exchanged gifts. For a few hours, it was peace. There were, of course, some officers who went straight to headquarters to report this, and plenty of men who did not take part. But overall, the mood was far from being hostile. It was this weird realization that the other side was just as human as their own side.
Silence.
Man.
Remember the silence on a cold winter day. After many months on the battlefield, and we were used to the violence. Then all the cannons went silent, and the snow fell. Voices sang to me from no man's land. We are all, we are all, we are all, we are all friends.
The most iconic moment of the truce is, of course, the football match in no man's land. It was as spontaneous as everything else that day, and the stories all vary. A ball appeared from somewhere. I don't know where, but it came from their side. They made up some goals, and one fellow went in goal, and then it was just a general kickabout. I should think there were a couple of hundred taking part. I had a go at the ball. Everybody seemed to be enjoying themselves. There was no sort of ill will between us. There was no referee, no score, no tally at all. Private Williams of the Cheshire Regiment. A couple of English brought a football out of their trench, and a vigorous football match began. This was also marvelous and strange. The English officers thought so too. Towards the evening, the officers asked whether a big football match could be held the following day between the two positions. Saxon Lieutenant Zemich. No man's land had seemed 10 miles across when we were crawling out on a night patrol, but now we found it no wider than the width of 2 football pitches. We provided the football and set up stretchers as goalposts, and the Reverend Jolly, our padre, acted as referee. They beat us 3-2. Robert Graves, Royal Welsh Fusiliers.
Man.
As it started getting dark, men shook hands and went back to their trenches. The Christmas truce was a unique and rare moment in history, sure. It was both spontaneous and to a certain degree foreseeable. Of course, it didn't happen everywhere. Hundreds of men still died, and parts of the front were as busy as they were every other day. And the Western Front was just one of many battlefronts in the war. On Christmas Day, Ottoman soldiers by the tens of thousands were busy freezing to death in the disastrous Battle of Sarikamish in eastern Anatolia. But for those that experienced the truce, it was something they'd never forget. In some places it lasted a few hours, somewhere else it lasted to the next day, but it could not go on forever. As the news went up the chain of command, generals on both sides were quick to snuff it out. Fraternization was deemed a crime against the nation. Participating units were rotated out of the lines, and their officers were threatened with court-martial. High command ordered inspections and speeches and shamed the men at the front. Did you shake hands with those that bayoneted babies in Belgium? Did you exchange gifts with the bastards that killed your brother yesterday? Although the press back home was quick to take up the story, censorship soon cracked down on its telling. The whole truce became taboo. Official war history denied that it ever happened. It only lived on through the memories of those that had participated and who had shared the stories with those back home. As the war went on, the animosity between sides became ever greater. Poison gas, flamethrowers, the sinking of merchant ships, the slaughter at the Somme and Verdun all made sure that the Christmas truce in the West would not repeat itself. Of course, there would be smaller truces all over the war on all fronts for such things as retrieving bodies. Informal arrangements were respected, but this level of fraternization, this antithesis to war, would never be again reached. Not until the end. Still, Churchill got his answer. For a single day, the opposing forces mingled in friendly conversation and even in games. It was an amazing spectacle and must arouse bitter thoughts concerning those high-ranking conspirators against the peace of the world who in their mad ambition had hounded such men on to take each other by the throat rather than by the hand. Arthur Conan Doyle.
Man.
Hey, Per.
Hey, Indy. Hey, there's something that looks
You know,
a little bit different
Yeah,
on you
let me-
than
let me
normally.
pause it here.
Is it the Kavai?
I'm just going to pause it before they start talking so
Yeah.
that we can discuss.
it's a,
Wow.
yeah. I mean, what? Oh God, I love that. I love that. I absolutely love that story.
I learned even more watching this.
Because I
I
mean,
mean, he kind of like Sabaton in their song gives you the story, but he was giving like details about
Yeah.
how it started. It started because they were both out collecting and burying the bodies of their soldiers, and
yeah,
that's how the truce started. And
it's crazy. It's absolutely mind blowing. It's like you have this, honestly, this verbal communication with your enemy, right?
Yeah.
The person you're supposed to be killing, and vice versa. And but you have this verbal agreement. Once in a while, we can go pick up the bodies. You know, that's just like a respect thing. And like,
right.
granted, they murdered each other in droves. You know, the
Yes.
First World War, like that's that's a given, obviously. But it's weird when you see this glimmer of like humanity pop up in the middle
Yeah.
where humanity doesn't exist.
Doesn't exist. No. Or at
And
least you thought
that's
it didn't
yeah.
until
That's
you
like
hear a story like this, and it's just it's very emotional.
it's like the biggest middle finger to the officers and the chain of command. It's like, what happens when both sides become human? That's
Right.
what happens. No one wants to do this, especially like what he said. It's a very big detail. It's like these guys weren't the first soldiers there. You know, they weren't
Right.
these guys were like, let's say, the reserves to come in, and they're like, why are we here? This sucks. This sucks. And
Right.
then they're saying this sucks too. So, you know, my
Well,
job is to kill you, but let's take the day off.
yeah. Yes. Because they were both sides were hurting. Both
Yeah.
sides were feeling homesick and
Yeah.
Christmas. And the higher ups, the officers, I mean, I'm sure they didn't have it as bad at Christmas time as the soldiers did.
No.
And so it's like and even with war being just horrible, their surroundings and were just subpar. I mean,
Oh.
it was just like hell. I mean,
Hell.
war is hell, but the way that their conditions were that they had to put up with, and
I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy, those
No.
conditions. Like it just, the whole idea of it, that's just a whole different generation. That's two generations ago, almost World War I. and it's just like, oh my goodness, they were built different then, man.
Yes, yes.
But
And they
it's
had they had respect and they had honor. That was huge back in their generation.
oh yeah,
It has lessened, in my opinion, in humanity as we've come forward to the present.
oh
Um,
yeah, it's well, now you can do that without even seeing the enemy. You can just see them on a screen and push a button, and that's that.
yeah.
But it's very unique. Like this story, I'm glad this story wasn't completely forgotten in throughout
Oh, me
history.
too. It's so important, you
Yeah.
know. You hear, lest us never forget. Well,
Hmm.
when I watch this and I listen and the gentleman that is telling the story is incredible.
Yeah.
I mean, he's just like I'm feeling like I'm there. So
Yeah.
kudos to him. Um, but when he explains everything in detail and it's my God, we can't ever forget. We can't. Human beings just like
Mm-mm.
us went through that
Yeah.
for real. Not just a story, not just a fable, not just
No.
they went through that and it is so important for all of us to remember and pay homage and feel that respect and that loyalty. It's so important and I commend Sabaton for using their platform and their musical brilliance to not only entertain but also spread the knowledge and make
Oh,
sure that we never forget.
yeah. And it's such a positive. It sounds crazy, but it's such a positive message that even like in the darkest moments of human history, there is still a glimmer of humanity in what it could be.
Yeah.
Like there's still humanity in there, and humanity finds a way, and that is something that's amazing.
It's incredible.
Like,
And to
all
have
right,
to
like
have that trust. It's
that's
hard to
crazy.
trust,
No,
you know.
yeah.
It's
Oh
hard to
man,
trust in this day and age anyone,
yeah.
but for them to trust
The
their
enemy,
mortal enemy,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
it's
Oh my
incredible.
god, yeah. That's definitely a you got to put your brown pants on if you're gonna go up and over. That's a That's one of
Right?
those moves. Yeah. That's
Yes.
a lot.
Yeah.
That's a lot of trust right there.
That's a lot of trust.
Like F that,
Yeah.
man. But no,
Oh
so
my.
far this is awesome. Like it's adding such a different like layer to the story, And
Yes.
I have never heard the story until Sabaton sang about it.
Me
So
too. Me too.
it's absolutely awesome.
I love it. And I was so moved by the song when I reacted to it and the video that they did. So
Yeah.
professionally done. My goodness. And but now hearing the history
Hmm.
more in depth, man, it just brings it all back and it
Oh
makes it
yeah.
even so much more
Oh my
moving.
goodness. Yep. So much.
Yeah.
This is so much better knowing the story behind it.
Yeah. Absolutely. Okay, well let me
Yep.
go ahead and get us started here again. Oh, wait, I have to. Oh. Just give me a second.
No, you're good.
Oh,
There
I
you go.
got it. Okay.
Yes.
I'm new at this, everybody. So my apologies.
No, 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 no. It's you've done something to your
Oh,
face.
yeah, I completely forgot about that. Funny story though. You want to know how that happened?
Yeah.
Okay.
I hope it's a good Christmas
It's
story.
a good story. Yeah, okay, yeah. It's Christmas time, right?
I was
It
wondering what
Christmas
happened to
time,
his nose.
and because I'm a good guy, I was doing some charity work, right? And there were these orphans and nuns in an orphanage. Although it was a non-denominational orphanage, because Christmas is really about to celebrate giving and the human spirit and stuff. You could put religion in it if you like, but you know what I mean, right? So, but I'm there and I'm dressed as Santa Claus, right? And I'm giving out presents to all of the orphans from all over the world. They were all good orphans. There were no bad ones. Nobody got like a lump of coal or anything. And they got Sabaton albums, different ones. Someone got The Art of War, and this guy got The Great War. Because everybody loves Sabaton. All orphans love Sabaton. And nuns too. Nuns love Sabaton too. Well, it's going along great. But one of the nuns was smoking, right? And there was like, the bunting, the crepe paper and stuff like that, which is pretty flammable. And it started going up. And we realized that since it was cold, because it was Christmas, the pipes were frozen, so there's no water, right? So we couldn't put it out. So suddenly, the whole orphanage, the non-denominational orphanage, is a raging inferno. And I'm like, save the orphans, save the orphans. So I start grabbing orphans, like 1, 2 at a time, and I'm running out of the thing, and people are going, hi, Andy, save the orphans. I'm saving the orphans. But the thing is, there's a lot of smoke. There's smoke everywhere, because it's a fire, right? And I'm breathing in the smoke, and I start coughing, but my coughing is coming like, whoo. I'm going like, whoo, whoo, whoo. And the flames carrying kids. I look like the most satanic Santa Claus you ever seen, but I was actually a good Santa Claus, because I was saving orphans, right? And I get like all the orphans out, and the nun, and one, she apologized for smoking, and I got everybody's out there and stuff, and we're lying there in the snow out there, and I stand up and I hear this voice from behind me, and it was the Mother Superior, and she said, Indy, come here for a second. I turned around and I walked right into the door.
Oh, damn.
I took a layer of skin off my nose. Can you believe that?
God.
No. But what happened to the one who was smoking? She's still smoking?
No.
Okay, good.
Look, this is, no human beings are perfect. I'm not mocking orphans or nuns or myself or you
smoking people.
No. I mean, but smoking has several severe consequences. If you're a long-term smoker, you know what they are. You know that you have consequences. It does not mean that you can easily quit smoking. None or no none.
Nice PSA.
Well, I'm glad we had this talk. I'm glad we had
Great
this
introduction.
So let me ask you a question about the Christmas Truce episode. It is one of the most iconic things of the First World War, the most iconic occurrences, certainly non-battle related and stuff. But yet when you did the Great War, it's not on that. Now, did you consider a song about the Christmas Truce for the first Great War album, or why is it only now coming?
Yeah, that's a good, it is exactly like you said. We were considering it, of course, for the first album, for the Great War album. Of all the topics of World War I, the most requested was, please do a song that is not about battles, do something about peace, do about the Christmas Truce.
Right.
And we wanted to do it, but it's also about creating a good, suitable song for it.
Okay.
And we didn't do that. We couldn't write the right song for it. And it was always in our mind, maybe we should do another song to just add to it, and maybe have the Christmas Truce as a standalone single or something like that. Okay. And but as time progressed, and then there came a virus into the world which forbid us from touring, which meant that we went back a little bit to the songwriting process, and then we started to create more songs about World War I. And of course, at this time, we spent a lot of effort making the Christmas Truce song.
How did the songwriting process for this go? Since it was obviously difficult, if not impossible, for the first album to do it, how did you succeed this time?
Well, it's sort of a question for Joachim. However, I know, talking to him, how stressed he was about writing a specific song. I mean, when it comes to writing a song, any song, it's much easier than write a specific song. Normally Sabaton has a very, very big box of things, you can play like that or play like that, and it's a very, very big variety of songs.
Right.
But if you have to write specifically the Christmas Truce, you are a tiny window.
Yeah.
And that's, of course, makes the songwriting process more difficult.
Yeah.
But in the end, there is a song, and it captures the Christmas spirit.
Now, when I was doing the Great War, people would ask all the time, since we did a special about the Christmas Truce in the first year, but people always asking, well, were there other like Christmas truces or Easter truces or other holiday truces? Did people try to do these on any of the fronts? And the answer is not no. Now, in the history part you just heard, I don't talk about this, but on Easter in 1916, on the Eastern Front, the Russians tried an Easter truce facing against, not the Germans, the Austro-Hungarians, they're facing that part of the front. And they came out of their trenches on Easter morning with no weapons and anything. And they were taken prisoner by the Austro-Hungarians because the Julian and Gregorian calendars, which they're 13 days different. So it's Easter to the Russians, but it was not Easter to the Austro-Hungarians. It was just a bunch of guys coming out of their trenches without their weapons. So they took them all prisoners. So that's a big main reason why you did not get Eastern Front at Truce's.
And imagine if there was the midsummer,
interesting.
Swedish midsummer truce.
Yeah.
And this is a thing. If Sweden, hopefully never, but if Sweden goes to war and we fight over the midsummer,
Yeah.
at least we will try to do a midsummer's celebration, drinking moonshine and singing.
As you do.
The
Små
little frogs.
grodorna, små grodor. Now, but okay, so that's midsummer.
Probably the enemy is just like, oh, idiots, let's shoot them.
Wait, I speak Swedish. I think they're singing about frogs. Because they are. That's what Swedes do at midsummer. But speaking of what Swedes do at midsummer, what do you do at Christmas? How do you celebrate? Do you celebrate Christmas?
Yeah, well, it's my whole life. It hasn't changed that much. We're still together with the family, with the core family, and we just sit and we give away some presents, and we have a nice dinner together the whole day, and then we watch the Swedish Kalle Anka.
Okay, of course. I didn't used to when I came to Sweden because I thought that's the same thing every year. But I do now.
Yeah.
I do. I the older I get, the more Christmas traditioning I get. Although since my family, my siblings and my parents are all in Texas, and it's rare that I'm there over Christmas because I usually have work here. But I do sometimes. Like a few years ago, I went to a media market and bought the biggest deep fryer I could find on December 23rd. And I spent the next 3 days alone with just the cats, like deep frying like everything. Just seeing, and it was like one of the most fun Christmases I've ever had. You know what was really good? Deep fried gummy bears were really good. Okay, this is how you do deep fried gummy bears. Get a handful of gummy bears and stick them in the microwave, and so they're soft, not melted, right? And then mash them together, right? And then put them in the freezer for like 2 hours or so till it's frozen together, and then dip them in some batter, like a beer batter, and then deep fry it in a little ball. It's delicious.
And that's the tip for this year's Christmas dinner.
That is your Christmas treat, thanks to Sabaton History. Well, do you have a Christmas message for everybody out there in Sabaton land?
Yeah, well, I think we just wish everybody good holidays.
Yeah, joyous and happy holidays. I hope
Have
you
a
guys,
great time.
I hope you're safe and happy, and your whole week and month are full of smiles, and nothing but smiles. See you next
And
time.
gummy bears.
And gummy bears, deep fried. I'm from Texas. We deep fry everything.
Thank you, everybody.
See you next time.
See you next time.
Man. Man.
What?
All right, thanks for watching. Please subscribe and also click that little bell so you get notifications in the future when we release new episodes of Sabaton History Channel.
Heck yeah, man. Heck yeah.
Wow. That was
Indy
really-
Nidell. Indy Nidell. That was our host. Man,
Wow.
You know, I've only checked out, I feel like 2 Sabaton History Channel videos on my channel.
that
and
was
he
my
does-
first, and I am a huge fan.
Oh yeah,
So
the guy that they got, Indy Nidell, that
he's
man.
great.
Oh, come on, that's who you want. That's
So
who you want.
he's in Sweden, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
He's from Texas, but he yeah. Oh my gosh, incredible! What a historian. Oh,
Right? He has that like History Channel voice. Like
he does.
I don't know how
Yes.
I don't know how to like describe it any better. I hear his voice, History Channel, somewhere. I don't know where.
Very, very confident. Very,
Charismatic.
I mean, yes.
Yeah, definitely who
He
you
knows
want.
this. He knows the history, and he's telling the story, and
Yeah.
that's it. He's
And-
no
and-
nonsense.
This was
That was great.
This was awesome. This was like this is one of the best like history. It's Sabaton History Channel videos associated with their music. God, I'm already gone. I don't even know where I
Yeah.
was going, but it's awesome. It's an
Yes.
awesome video. It adds that
Oh
layer.
my gosh. I love that they did this. They went a
Oh, yeah.
step above and beyond. Not only are they teaching people through their music, but then they also, incorporated indie and created this history channel
Oh yeah.
to get even further knowledge about things that we really should already know about our history.
Yeah.
It's
I think this is what they're doing is just commendable. Like
yeah.
I humanity needs bands like Sabaton and people like Indy Nidell delivering that, because
Yes.
sometimes history can be very dry, and it shouldn't be dry. It's a very,
No.
very pertinent, potent topic. Um,
Yes. I
what is that old
agree. I
saying?
agree.
The more we know, the less, or the more we won't be what at risk to repeat.
Yes.
The more we, I
Absolutely.
guess, yeah, around those lines. I'm already
I
rambling.
think that, and I think that's a huge difference of our time now, is that I don't think that there's enough education about our
No,
real history, you know?
no. Um,
Things are either left out or they're
oh,
augmented or
oh yeah.
whatever, and it shouldn't, no.
Well,
And I
uh,
I commend I commend Sabaton for doing this.
oh yeah.
You guys rock.
It's at least for me, like World War One was kind of glanced over to get to World War Two. I know a
Yeah.
lot more about World War Two than I do World War One, and Sabaton
Yes.
is filling in a lot of history,
Yeah.
and so that's the best gift, honestly. And Sabaton is just awesome.
Absolutely. Yeah. I couldn't agree with you more. Oh my gosh. I'm
But
so glad we decided to do this.
let us know in the comments if you like these co-reactions. Let us know, please. That way we can team up again in the future at some point.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, thank you all so much for being
Yes.
here, for always being so kind and welcoming and generous with all of your information that you have on this band and their history. It helps me so much being a newbie, and I know Daniel appreciates it being not a newbie. And I just want to say thank you to Daniel for this beautiful microphone
Hey,
setup.
we're a team. We stick together, right?
I seriously, all joking aside, your friendship means the world to me, your mentorship, and thank you for believing in me when I didn't believe in myself.
Always, Angie.
So,
You are rocking it and doing great things on your own journey. And it
thank
is a
you.
pleasure to share this specific journey with you. And it's nice to be co-workers here on YouTube.
Absolutely. I love it. I've never had a better coworker.
There you go.
Okay. Well,
All
on
right.
that note, everybody, thank you for being here. I hope you enjoyed this. And like Daniel said, please leave in the comments if you'd like to see more co-reactions between Daniel and I. I've enjoyed it immensely.
Oh yeah.
And love and light to you and yours. Always remember to make a good first impression. It's so important. And
Yep.
until next time, guys, take care.